Namaste. So, in part 1 and 2 of programming paradigms, I have talked about the procedural way of doing things, which is what we started our programming with. Then came the object oriented way of doing programming, which was basically to view the whole world in terms of classes and associated methods. It provided much better encapsulation and abstraction in programming. But how people implemented these ideas were there are a lot of variability there. So what was good object oriented design was something that was still arguable. A lot of debates used to take place. So as I said, then one of the challenges that came along was the arrival of multi class of machines. What do I mean by that? So there were with the time sharing, you could have processes, multiple processes or threads running apparently concurrently in a machine. So with time sharing, you allocate very small time slices to each thread or each process, and they interleave. So therefore, it feels that there are multiple tasks are executing at the same time. But when multi-core machines came in, there were multiple CPUs inside the same computer, and they could actually execute independent task independent of each other. So, and then given that the lot of computing problems were inadequately addressed using a single computer, people talked about distributed computer systems. So, larger number of computer systems getting networked together, and work could be shared by among these machines. So, multiple computers, multiple CPUs in a box, time sharing based pseudo parallel. These were enabling a new way of looking at the world. And if you think about it, that is how the real world is, right? Every object or every entity in the world acts independently on their own and performs their behavior. So this potentially allowed us to capture a more realistic real world picture than what we wanted to do. Apart from the fact that you could do the things faster because there were multiple CPUs doing your job for you. The challenge it brought out was that, for example, when you have two or three different people working on the same problem, when do they share information? How do you make sure that the information that is shared is not stale or not premature? And how do you kind of manage to make sure that they are doing things in a sensible way? Okay, so if you take something like computing the average, you're supposed to finish computing the sum of the numbers, and then only you should actually take the average. And if you take a standard deviation, the deviation should be computed only after the average computed. So multiple machines could actually do the summation in parallel. 100 numbers each could be done by different machines, but then they should stop and make sure that all the summing machines are finished their job. Then one machine could do just the average. Then again you can distribute the task to these multiple CPUs or machines, and they could do the deviation, for example. So this issues of synchronization, when they should kind of come to a point, agree, yes, I have reached here, you have also reached there, now let's go ahead. The synchronization part, the communication among them, that how do I talk to these entities. So these became challenges in a book that me and a couple of my colleagues had written from NCST. We talked about these issues, communication, synchronization, race conditions. So these were, unforeseen or unknown in sequential programming, or whether it's object oriented or procedural. Okay, so new languages or extensions of existing languages got developed with the capability to address this. Okay, so there was concurrency, concurrent Pascal, concurrent Prolog, concurrent. So concurrent star was an extension of the existing ones, and there was also new languages that came in, which had supported this parallelism inherently. So Java threads, for example, allowed you to introduce or create and manage threads within the Java programming environment. And you could do RMI, the remote method invocation or message passing interfaces to have multiple processes talking to each other, and sharing information. So this was a big change in perspective and taking our worldview much closer to what we wanted it to be when we are telling a machine. So of course the challenge all along has been that we want to talk to or describe our problem to the computer in as natural a way as we would do to maybe a fellow human being. Okay. And from when we moved from pure machine language to assembly language to from there to higher level programming languages and to all these different abstractions or paradigms, the challenge is that we want to be as natural and leave the machine to go and figure out a lot of the nuances and details of how this should be interpreted. This has a lot of challenges, but that is what is keeping the drive of building better programming languages along. Okay, so concurrent programming or distributed programming, parallel programming became another paradigm, because if you are very good at Java programming or C programming, it won't automatically make you a good concurrent programmer. Okay, so you need to understand your thinking has to be different, because now when I create a thread, it just goes on its own pace. So I have no idea how many statements or how much of my code it will execute within a time frame, because the CPUs run on their own terms and conditions. So even if it is one statement here and 20 statements there, it is possible that even after finishing all that 20 statements, this one statement is not done. Okay, so these were different ways of thinking about how programming should be done, and that also therefore certainly qualifies to be a paradigm shift itself. Along this way, one more thing that came along was GUI, graphical user interface, if you want to just look at the name. But what it meant was that instead of the program taking control and telling asking the user, okay, give me this input or do this and do that, now the user gets control, or the entities that are connected to your program takes control. For example, data arrives in a pipeline, or let's say satellite data arrives at your interface point. A sensor data gets ready at sensor node. The user is want to know some things and all of that. So these external inputs they were growing in number and variety, and they come at their own time and pace. So it was important that your program is capable of responding to what happens in the world at as and when that happens in the world, right? You can't tell the sensor input and say, hold on, I am currently executing this, when I am done I will come there, right? So you need to be immediately responding to the sensor input, an interrupt or an alert, or all of this. So this meant that these external events is going to drive your program behavior. So which event will happen at what time, we won't know. So that was why that led to further refinement of these ideas to event-driven programming. So your job was to look at all the events that can happen between you, that is the program, and the external world, and define these events and define handlers for this. But in the behind the scenes, you have all these object-oriented or procedural or whatever way you are organizing it. They take care of the bookkeeping and all that. But there is a layer which need to be responsive to the events that is happening there. Okay, so this led to again a whole lot of frameworks and libraries and environments which would support event-driven programming. Okay, so that is even if you have a user interface, there will be 20 buttons and the user can click any of them in any time that you want. It is up to the program to make sure that these are interpreted correctly. If you is putting something in the wrong order, it should be prevented or it should be reported. but you will need to allow a multi pronged way for a user to view your application. So I can ask for a proposal entry, I can ask for a status here, I can ask for a respond to some user comment, all of that at my will and not when my program allows me to or asks me to do. So this was also a significant change in the worldview, because as you can see, we are still getting closer and closer to the way the world is. So this was the idea of event-driven programming, and a lot of GUI languages allowed this to be done quite effectively. So today, when you talk about programming, you are more or less in this frame. Event driven, concurrent, object oriented is default package that you mostly deal with. Okay, so in the next one or two sessions, I'll talk about a couple of other ways of looking at the world, which is quite different from the way we are now, this thread that we have been currently focusing on. Take care. Bye-bye.